Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then hello, and if you've been here before, then welcome back. So today's video is gonna be our birth story. This isn't going to be a very long video because there really isn't much to really tell you about my birth and delivery, because you'll find out why in a minute. Again, it was a really positive experience. All of my labours have definitely been very different. All have been very positive. For those of you that don't know, I just had my third baby 2 weeks ago. By the time you see this, it'd be about 2.5 weeks ago that I gave birth to our beautiful son, first boy of the family, which seems absolutely crazy. He's absolutely perfect. Without further ado, we're gonna get straight on into today's video. So, where do I even start? Like, I obviously had him, he was born on the 10th of August. So on Tuesday the 9th of August, I honestly had no inkling, no signs, no nothing that, you know, I was going to go into labour the next day. Well, in essence, that night, early hours. I literally went about my day on the Tuesday. I met up with my sister. I went into town, chilled with my mum and that at theirs. Literally no inkling, nothing. Tuesday evening, I sat on my birth ball, done like my standard exercises that I had been doing throughout pretty much most of my pregnancy, obviously bouncing on the birth ball, things like that. Got in the shower, had a nice warm shower because I was getting ready to harvest some colostrum. Bearing in mind I was obviously 39 weeks and 1 day, so obviously it's safe to do so. I obviously had a shower that evening, came and sat in the bedroom, harvested some colostrum. I think I got about 3 mils out of colostrum that night. I then had my raspberry leaf tea. I had been drinking that again from 34 weeks every day right up to the end, and I am 100% sure that that is partly the reason why my labour went the way that it did. Then after that, I got into bed as normal. You know, we tried the things that's recommended to help induce labour, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not actually going to physically like say the word because you guys know. And so that happened, and then ended up going to sleep, and then around about 12:20 I woke up because I needed a wee. If you're cringed out by too much information kind of stuff, then you might want to skip this part just because it is not very nice. But I woke up at 12:20 to go for a wee, and I just felt a little bit off, and when I wiped there was blood. I just assumed that obviously because we had, you know, that it had irritated my cervix a little bit, and that was the reason for the blood. Obviously it wasn't anything too major, so I wasn't too worried at that point. Got back into bed, fell back to sleep until just gone 2, and again I needed a wee, so I woke up, went for a wee, and there was the same again. This time there was a little bit more sort of mucus, so I know by this point it was my obviously bloody show. And then I started to get some cramping, and again I just thought it was because I needed to go to the loo, as in I needed a poo, because I did struggle towards the end to obviously go to the toilet. So I obviously was getting bellyache every now and then when obviously I couldn't go, so I just assumed it was that. Got back into bed and fell back to sleep. I went to sleep with the cramping because they weren't too bad, and then I woke up at 3:10 again because I needed a wee, and because the cramping had got a little bit worse but not too bad. So again, obviously got up, went to the toilet. There was more of my show and my plug and stuff. So I decided to stay up. And by this point, I started to time the cramping because I thought, yes, I'm definitely in labour or labour is starting. So I started to time them, and from 3 o'clock to 5:10, I think, it may have been a little bit before then, I had timed my contractions, and they were every 4 minutes apart, lasting between 40 to a minute long. So at this point I was like, actually it's time to probably ring and let the hospital know that I obviously think I'm in labour, see what they suggest. So at 5:10 I rang the maternity triage and I let them know that obviously I was having contractions. I obviously had my bloody show. I was obviously a little bit concerned about the amount of blood that there was, because there was more than what I remember when I lost my bloody show with Penelope. So obviously I just made them aware of that, and they basically just said to me that if I can still handle the contractions at home, then just to wait another hour at home and take some paracetamol. They did suggest having a bath, but because we weren't sure whether my waters had gone, they had obviously advised against that because we weren't too sure. So I obviously agreed that yes, I could probably wait another hour, and we can just wait it out and see what happens. Let me tell you that knowing what I did when I got to the hospital, if I had waited another hour, I wouldn't have made it to the hospital, or I probably would have had him in the car. So literally after I got off the phone, obviously they said to ring back within an hour. Within 10 minutes of getting off the phone, my contractions were so bad. I was in so much pain. I ended up ringing them back and saying, actually, I don't think I can wait another hour. I think it's time that I come in. And they agreed that yes, it's probably time to come in. So I ended up ringing my mum. My mum came straight away. Like, my mum was super speedy. Like, I'm so grateful that she was really quick. We loaded the car up, and at just before 6, I think we left. I think it was about 5:45 when we left my house to get to the hospital. It takes about 15-20 minutes to get to the hospital. I'm lucky in the sense that James did put his foot down. It was quiet, and thank God that he did. We arrived at the hospital at 6:10, and they took my notes, and honestly I was sat in the waiting room and I was literally having these full-blown contractions, and there was only one assessment room where people get taken in to obviously assess whether they're in labour or not, apart from obviously like the maternity triage area, which is obviously like 6 beds. So we were waiting a little while, and I said to James, I said, you're gonna have to find someone and ask how long it's gonna take, because I don't think we've got long. Like, I had so much pressure in my bum and sort of down in that area that I was like, I don't think that we can wait any longer. Luckily, a midwife heard what was going on, and she said, we'll take you into the maternity triage, which is obviously like the open bays. Obviously there is curtains to separate it, and we'll get someone to come and assess you here rather than waiting for the room and the consultant and midwife or whoever who was doing the assessments that morning to obviously come and see me. So I was in there. They brought me gas and air because my contractions were really, really bad. I was having back labour again. So I thought it was going to go the same way as it did with Penelope. I just really started to worry because I was like, these pains, these contractions and everything was the exact same as when I went into labour with Penelope. So I was thinking, it's going to be a long ass day. However, the midwife came and done my observations, and my blood pressure was high, but I think that was because I was literally like mid-contraction when she done it, because my contractions were literally back to back. I was literally getting no rest, like no break in between each one. She done a cervical check and it turned out that I was 7 centimeters, which was a huge shock. I was only expecting to be like 4, if that. And yeah, it was such a big shock. So she was like, yeah, we need to get you down to your chosen place of birth. So I was like, well, I planned to stay on the delivery suite, so that was fine. They managed to free up a room for me, and a lovely student midwife joined us on our experience, and she was absolutely lovely. She brought a wheelchair. She was like, well, she asked me, can you walk or would you like a wheelchair? And at this point I was like, I can't walk, like the pressure was too much. So she brought a wheelchair straight away, and obviously I had to come off the gas and air to get to my room to obviously then be hooked up to the main line of gas and air. Got into my room at 6:30. Laboured away. James went and got all the stuff from out the car. It seemed like forever, and when I tell you that from when I left the maternity triage at 6:30 and got into my room, I kid you not, I gave birth in 45 minutes. Yeah, crazy. So I literally only had gas and air. Was just going through it. My contractions were obviously getting stronger, and they were literally full on back to back. I literally like had no break. I was getting tired because I had literally been up from like 12 in and out of sleep, and done sort of the hard work at home in essence, because they say obviously try and labour as much as you can at home. You're not in active labour until you're 4 centimeters, blah blah blah. You guys know that if you've had babies. And then my body was telling me to push, and I was like, I'm probably not ready to push, but my body literally is doing it. Like I couldn't control what my body was telling me. So they said, obviously don't fight it, like if you need to start pushing, start pushing. So I obviously started pushing. There was only like one push essentially, and then obviously my contractions would just come in, and then all of a sudden I was like, I need to push, like something's happening. So I pushed. Literally my waters broke and his head came straight out. The midwives were not ready, so they were like to James, they were like, can you just hire the bed and press the button, because they needed a little bit more assistance because they just weren't ready. And then literally I did 2 more pushes because I needed to do a little push because of his chin, and then obviously 3rd push was shoulders, and he was out, like it was done. And he was born at 7:16 in the morning, so that was literally an hour after I was checked in triage. So if I had waited another hour at home, I wouldn't have made it to the hospital to give birth to him. I had a 2nd degree tear, which obviously needed stitches, and honestly didn't feel a thing. Obviously it was a little bit uncomfortable. You could feel like the pulling of the I say string, the sutras I think they call them. So then that was done, and I was back home by 3 o'clock the same day. Obviously you have to wait 6 hours just to make sure obviously you and baby are okay. I got up, I showered, obviously I fed little man, made sure everything was okay with that, because obviously I'm breastfeeding, and I didn't breastfeed any of the other 2, so obviously I wanted to make sure I had that support before we left. And we just enjoyed our first couple of hours as the 3 of us before coming home to the other 2, and it all happened so quick. Like I cannot tell you how quickly it happened. It was a little bit of a shock. He was definitely shocked when he came out. He didn't actually cry when he came out, and he was very purple. So obviously they had to make sure they gave him a big rub, and once they'd done that, he then let out the biggest cry, which was obviously a relief. You know, as a mum, when your baby comes out, you're just waiting for that cry. And when obviously he first didn't cry and he was purple, obviously it set in, like, yeah. But luckily he cried within less than a minute, I think. And obviously after that he was absolutely fine. He was perfect. And yeah, it was all very, very positive, the whole experience this time round. James got to experience a very quick labour, which he didn't get to experience before because of some complications with Penelope, but this time it all went plain sailing, which was so nice. And the fact that we got to come home the same day as well was so nice. All the midwives and stuff were absolutely amazing. Can't thank them enough. And yeah, we are now 2.5 weeks on, and we are all doing well. He's doing well, and yeah, I actually really enjoyed my labour and delivery this time, believe it or not, even though it was very painful. But you forget the pain after, so it's all completely worth it. But yeah, that is my positive birth experience. I know everyone's labour and delivery is very, very different depending on circumstances, but again, you can make them very, very positive or take the positive from them. And this time was very positive for us. My labour was so quick, there really isn't much to say on it. So that is going to go ahead and conclude today's video. If you did enjoy today's video, then please do remember to click the thumbs up and also click the subscribe button down below. And I will see you guys in a brand new video very, very soon. Bye guys.